The Capitals down the Canes in the shootout, and they did it without Wilson, Oshie, or Protas. How did they get it done, and is this winning sustainable? I'll discuss next on this edition of Locked On Capitals.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. As always, this podcast is free and available on all the major platforms, including the SiriusXM app and on YouTube. And I want to thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. My name is Dan Holme. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. And the best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. I would love to talk Capitals hockey with you one-on-one, and we can do that on subtext. Just check the show description for more details. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 if your bet wins. Visit fanduel.com/locked on to get started. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about how it took the shootout, but the Capitals found a way to down the Hurricanes. We'll talk about that in the show a little bit later. We will talk about questions in the netminding department. Charlie Lindgren holds it down as the number one netminder, but is Darcy Kuemper up for the task of being number two? We'll talk about that a little bit later. We will talk about the latest with TJ Oshie and Alexei Protas. And then it was Evgeny Kuznetsov's return to Capital One. But just to get it going here, quite a victory by the Capitals taking down the Hurricanes. Not an easy one. A lot of pushback, a lot of going back and forth. It was a bit of a frustrating game watching it because as soon as the Capitals would score a goal, the Hurricanes, bam, had a quick answer right back. And it was back and forth and back and forth. And it was a difficult game to watch, but the Capitals found a way to do it, and they found a way to do it minus Tom Wilson, TJ Oshie, and Alexei Protas. And what is one of the things that we know is that the Capitals will be out of the services of Tom Wilson because of a suspension. TJ Oshie and Alexei Protas, hopefully they're good to go sooner than later, and I'll talk about them a little bit later in the show. But a real statement for this team, finding a way to pick up a victory, even though it took the shootout to take down a huge opponent like the Carolina Hurricanes, and just, something to build on and positivity for the Capitals as they take down, like I say, a big opponent. The Capitals truly pulled off the improbable by defeating the Carolina Hurricanes in the shootout and pick up some desperately needed points. Listen, this is crunch time. There's not a lot of hockey left. It was really great that the Capitals found a way to pick up the win. This was a tough feat considering the team was out due to a suspension of Tom Wilson and TJ Oshie and Alexei Protas. Like I talked about, were missing from the game. One of the things I said about Sonny Milano was that we need to see more from him. I said that before he got injured, and then ever since he's come back, he has been a key contributor to this team. And what did he do? He scored a hat trick in a huge game that many had not circled the Capitals as winning. I don't think, maybe a lot of people that are listening to the show or watching the show, that you probably didn't have the Capitals circled as, winning this game against the Hurricanes. A big win against a truly great opponent. Hopefully they can continue to keep riding the momentum. The Capitals started off on the wrong foot by going down by 1-0 as the Canes found the back of the net first. And, automatically, when you're back on your heels and you're trying to fight your way back into it, it's never easy. Sonny Milano found twine with a sweet feed from Connor McMichael. The Milano backhand past their goaltender was quite stunning. As you watched that game, their netminder was dialed in, and he didn't give the Capitals a lot to work with. But, just based on the score, the Capitals found a way to get it past him. And, it was a Hurricanes team that's really good, but they showed their weaknesses as well. As the final score was 7-6, a very high scoring event to be sure. But Sonny Milano, huge for the Capitals and playing a huge role in the absence of a lot of key players. Tom Wilson, he brings a lot to this team. TJ Oshie, Alexei Protas. So the way that they were able to find a win, minus all those players with Matthew Phillips in there, it was definitely picking up the improbable. The second goal in the second period required a great hand-eye coordination, kind of bouncing it off his stick blade and lifting it past their netminder, almost kind of like hacky sack, but with the blade of his stick. It required a lot of skills. You saw him bounce, and then just kind of lifted it over. It was quite something. Milano struck again in the third, but Milano is having a breakout season this season with 13 goals. His best seasons, Milano has hit the 14-goal mark twice in his career, in the 17-18 season with Columbus and the 21-22 season with Anaheim. But a key contributor and, kind of the guy that's been in the doghouse of Spencer Carberry in the past and oftentimes gets, chewed out by Captain Alex Ovechkin for not being in the right position. But I think that we can kind of put all of that in the past as he scored a hat trick in a game against a truly great opponent that has, definitely the makings of a playoff team, the Hurricanes, and maybe the Capitals as well, but a statement win for the Capitals to be sure. Alex Ovechkin continues to be red hot, leading this team by example. Ovi scored after competing hard in front of the net and fighting off a stick lift. One of those moments where the opponent was trying to lift his stick and he kind of batted it down and shot it in a true sign of dominance and strength. The Capitals captain now sits at 846 career goals and is 49 away from passing Wayne Gretzky for the most in NHL history. Huge night for Alex Ovechkin. Sonny Milano, the Capitals in general, just really huge. The Capitals were involved in a tough back and forth with the Canes. It was particularly a tough for the Caps. Every time the Caps scored, the Canes had the answer. That was the frustrating part. You thought you're in it, like, take that, Hurricanes. We scored another goal. And then shortly thereafter, bam, they would find another goal. And it was definitely a test of wills, a test of who was the better team. And it's interesting that, sometimes if you looked at it statistically, or say you were using Bet Online to bet on, or FanDuel or whatever, to bet on the game, that perhaps you looked at it and thought that, hey, the Capitals, if I take the look at the odds here, probably aren't going to win the game. They found a way to rise above. Connor McMichael also continues to be clutch as he scored in the third. The game went to the shootout. And after 5 rounds, Dylan Strome found the back of the net and the Capitals left victorious. Again, a huge win for the Capitals to be sure. And, a good momentum piece, because we know that they are taking on the Jets on Sunday. And we know how that went the first time that they stonewalled the Capitals. Hopefully they have what it takes to find the answer to pick up a big win this time. As, again, I've said this on the show before, that oftentimes you'll have certain things circled. Well, the Capitals will most likely lose to the Hurricanes. And, this team they'll probably win against. Listen, hardly anyone, if anyone, had the Capitals circled for winning the game against the Hurricanes. They did it. I'm not going to write them off. I'm not going to say it's impossible for them to beat the Jets, despite what they did to them not that long ago. There is hope that they can get it done, because this team is kicking into almost playoff gear, and they're doing it without some key contributors. And let's really hope that they can keep it rolling and pick up a big win tomorrow. All right, so coming up here after the break, Darcy Kuemper's game to play in net, only his second game in the month of March, and he got pulled. Is there an issue in net for the Capitals? We know it's Charlie Lindgren is number 1, but who is going to be the number 2? I'll discuss straight ahead. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED lights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number 1 ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn it down the volume with all the shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So this was only the second start for Darcy Kuemper in the month of March. And let's just say he fell a little bit under what we had anticipated he was going to bring. He did not live up to expectations, and it kind of is, posing an interesting question for the Capitals. Is that he the answer for number two? Listen, we know that Charlie Lindgren is the number one netminder for the Capitals right now, just based on his play. But with the play of Darcy Kuemper last night, it draws into question if they have better options down in Hershey. Clay Stevenson currently sits number one in all of the AHL in netminders. Number two, that would be Hunter Shepard. And then you had a game that saw Darcy Kuemper out of position. The glove, when he tried to stop the puck with the glove and it went past into the net, that was the moment that I was really kind of drawing into question. What are we going to do here? I understand this is just one game and it's in a vacuum, but, being that this is only his second start in the month of March does not bode well for Darcy Kuemper. Taking a look at it, the Canes were too much for Kuemper, and the Caps had the answer. Charlie Lindgren has taken over the number one goalie job for quite some time. The Caps were looking to keep Kuemper fresh and ready to go. This was only Darcy's second game in the month of March. This, however, was not one of his better games, and one that Darcy will want to forget. Spencer Carberry had to make the difficult decision to pull Darcy. And make no mistake about it, I think that, if he, if he didn't make the hard decision to pull Darcy, I think the Capitals would have lost the game, because Charlie Lindgren was dialed in. And I don't really even have to think about it. If the Capitals just did the easy thing by saying, well, Darcy hasn't played in quite some time, we really can't pull him in this one, I think we would be talking about a loss right now. I felt like I needed to do something as a coach, and it's not an easy decision that I take lightly to take Kemps out of there, Carberry said. But with the amount of goals that were going in, and even the two challenges that are successful, and the puck plays behind the net, I just felt like it wasn't Darcy's night. I just felt like we had to change momentum somehow, some way, going into that third period. And the perfect answer, and, it took guts for Spencer Carberry to do that. Listen, that was a tough decision. And, you got to be thinking, Darcy Kuemper's like, what's going on? This is only my second start all month, and I'm getting pulled. Had to be a tough moment. But ultimately, that is why they hired Spencer Carberry to make those tough decisions. It turned out to be the right decision, as Darcy wasn't sharp. The Caps would have the most assuredly have lost the game had they stuck with Kuemper. Darcy Kuemper seemed to be out of position and seemed to have difficulty tracking the puck. Kuemper got the hook going into the third for Charlie Lindgren after giving up 4 goals on 22 shots. What were you going to do? Hey, we can't do it. It's not the right thing to do. Okay, then you're just going to accept that the Capitals were going to lose. If it wasn't for the goal challenges, he would have gave up 6 goals. To be fair, the Caps struggled defensively. Turnovers and sloppy play didn't do Darcy any favors. Again, this doesn't rest squarely on his shoulders, but I'm not going to bail out Darcy on this one. He did not have one of his better outings, and that's why he got the hook. The goal off Brady Shea off of Kuemper's glove was the moment where I had seen enough. Get him out of here. I'm glad that it was Spencer Carberry making that decision and not me. And then Lindgren came in to save the day. On the evening, Kuemper saved 18 of 22. Charlie Lindgren, 7 of 9. So the question now is, who should be the number 2? It's an interesting position. Say something crazy happens and, they give Darcy Kuemper another opportunity and he falters again. Well, again, and I've talked about this, and if you're an everydayer of the show, I talk about there's not a lot of runway. There's not a lot of time to let, hey, Darcy Kuemper can find himself. This is, where the rubber meets the road. And I understand that, Charlie Lindgren is going to be carrying a bulk of the mail for the Capitals, but when he needs a break, they need a competent backup. And I hate to draw this into question, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. Is Darcy Kuemper that competent backup? When you like I talked about, Clay Stevenson, number one down in the AHL, Hunter Shepard, number two guys that have, Hunter Shepard anyway, made the most of his opportunities when called up. Now, granted, we haven't seen a lot of Clay Stevenson in NHL activity, but okay, fine. Let's give it Hunter Shepard as number two. So an interesting position that the Capitals find themselves in, that you have this guy you're paying all this money to that has, quite a bit of term left on his deal, but he's just not up for the challenge. So it would be an interesting position how they would deal with that. Say Kuemper was not the guy. Are they going to healthy scratch him, and wait for an expanded roster, what the case would be? But an interesting position for the Capitals to be in. And, when I saw that Kuemper was going to be in net, I'm like, Kuemper, what are we doing here? The Hurricanes are going to be tough, and you're going to put a guy in there that struggled in his last start. And, he didn't, get a vote of confidence, I think, going forward based on his performance in the last game. So if you're asking me, I think that, Darcy Kuemper probably gets another start between now and the end of the season. And if he falters again, I think the decision is easy. You have to go with either Clay Stevenson or Hunter Shepard. You can't, again, we are at where the rubber's meeting the road. There's not a lot of runway left on this season, that either he's going to rise to the challenge or you're going to make the tough decision and call up one of the guys from down in Hershey. For me, it's not that tough. I understand it's a tough call to make as being the guy that has to make that decision, i.e. Brian McClellan and Spencer Carberry. But I mean, we're in the point where we are still technically in it. Do we want to squander that going with a subpar netminder? Listen, we've already kind of shot ourselves in the foot, or Tom Wilson did, by getting a lengthy suspension at a time when we need him the most. So let's not shoot ourselves in the other foot by putting Darcy Kuemper in there if he's not the guy to get it done. And from what I've seen from his last couple starts, he doesn't appear to be the guy. So make the right decision and give Hunter Shepard or Clay Stevenson, the reins as the number two. Listen, Charlie Lindgren can ride this out as much as possible, but say he gets injured or he needs a break. I mean, he's going to need a break at some point. Listen, what needs to be done. For me, Hunter Shepard or Clay Stevenson. I would say, if you're asking me which one, I would go with Hunter Shepard just based on he has more NHL experience. But Clay Stevenson could probably do just as good a job. We just don't know that for sure, since we don't have a lot of, time seeing him playing up on the big team. So tough questions for the Capitals, to be sure, but it's something that needs to be addressed. All right, so coming up here after the break, we will talk about the very latest with TJ Oshie and Alexei Protas. Will they be good to go tomorrow against the Jets? And Kuzi makes his return to Capital One. I'll discuss coming up. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So TJ Oshie and Alexei Protas and Tom Wilson were out. Well, we know what the status of Tom Wilson is. He will not be helping the Capitals for some time here. But TJ Oshie, Alexei Protas, the Capitals would play that much better with him in the lineup. I don't think that there's any real question there. Even though the Capitals found a way to win, I think it would have been optimal to have both of those players in the game. TJ Oshie and Alexei Protas continue their recovery from respective upper and lower body injuries. Both are still day to day. Spencer Carberry did say he hopes both will be good to go, but won't know for sure until after practice. And I haven't heard any official word on what the thought is there, but that is what Spencer Carberry said this morning before practice. TJ Oshie will be honored for his 1,000th game. Oshie participated in full practice. Wilson was on the ice for practice. He also got extra work in after. So this will be the Capitals acknowledging TJ Oshie's 1,000th game at home. And Tom Wilson, It's probably a good idea that he does put in the extra work so that when he is able to make his return, he will be fresh. He is serving a 6-game suspension for high sticking Noah Gregor back on Wednesday. And, again, I watched it back a couple times, and I think that it was deserving of something. 6 games, just given the fact of where the Capitals are, I think was a little bit severe. And also, Noah Gregor asked about it. He said he didn't think it was on purpose. He think that maybe it just got away from him a little bit. But he didn't seem too upset about it. Sometimes these guys are just seething with anger, like just give it to them. That wasn't the case at all. So 6 games seems a bit severe by the NHL player safety, just considering how many games that this could potentially sink the Capitals' hopes for the playoffs. I'm not saying it's going to. I'm just saying it has the makings of doing that. So just an interesting thing, and we're hoping that the Capitals will be back with TJ Oshie and Alexei Protas, and they can find a way to rise above. Kuemper was also at the optional skate after getting pulled the night before versus the Hurricanes. Again, he needs that extra work. He was not sharp. He needs to get back to where he needs to be. In the previous segment, I talked about what do they do? Do they go with Clay Stevenson or Hunter Shepard? Listen, the best case scenario would be that Kuemper could, recalibrate his brain and just get back into where we know he can be. This is a guy that has won a Stanley Cup before. We know that he has the pedigree, the history. He is an elite athlete when he's dialed in. Last night was not a game he was dialed in. Let's hope for the best case scenario that he can find his game and help the Capitals. It was also the homecoming for Evgeny Kuznetsov, and kind of a cool moment to see, and he got a bit emotional there as they were playing the highlight package, and, just kind of everyone was standing up and cheering for him. Kind of a surreal moment, I got to imagine, for a guy that was, facing a lot of ridicule in Washington. And that there was a lot of the fan base and the writers and myself at points saying that, we need to do whatever it takes to get him out of Washington. But a sweet homecoming for Evgeny Kuznetsov. Kuzi was emotional after the standing ovation and video honoring his time in Washington. That's special. Yes, that's special. I think both crowds, one was in Raleigh right away. When they cheer for me and the crowd cheer for me there, it means the world for any player, Kuznetsov said. Ovi and Kuzi were chippy and tangled briefly with a trip friendly, though. But, it's got to be kind of a tough and odd moment for Alex Ovechkin and Evgeny Kuznetsov. We do know that Kuzi spent 11 years in Washington, and I think that, there's a lot of highlights. We know that he was clutch for the Capitals winning the Stanley Cup, that, dare I say, had it not been for him, the Capitals very well may have not won a Stanley Cup. So we will forever be in Evgeny Kuznetsov's debt. It's huge. Thanks for everything. It was amazing. 11 years, he added. It's nice to be back here. Play hockey. I wish them all the best. They got a pretty good team, and it's all positive. Good for Kuzi. Good for the Capitals. We're happy he wanted that fresh change. He wanted a change of scenery. He has got that, and he has been playing a huge role for the Hurricanes. Kuzi's time in Carolina has gone well. 5 points in 9 games. So, I'm happy for him at the end of the day. And for all the fans that are like, we shouldn't have got rid of him. Listen, it didn't work. The Capitals tried to retread that tire with Evgeny Kuznetsov multiple times. It just didn't work. And kind of an interesting moment was that he got involved in front of the net. It was challenged by the Capitals for goaltender interference, and the goal was overturned because Kuznetsov was involved in goalie interference. So kind of an interesting and kind of funny and odd thing for the Capitals and Evgeny Kuznetsov and his homecoming, that he got involved in a play such as that. But a great victory for the Capitals, again, picking up a big win over a team that most had not circled the win. A good homecoming for Kuznetsov. Kind of draws into question what Kuemper's future is with the Capitals, at least for this season. Can he rise above? Can he find his game, or will they have to go down to Hershey? And what's the future with Oshie and Protas? Will they be good to go against the Jets tomorrow? A lot of questions. We're hoping that both of those players will be good to go, and we're hoping that Charlie Lindgren, who has been named the starter for tomorrow, and the Capitals can find a way to keep chugging, keep winning, and take down another team that most have not circled for them winning. Listen, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Washington Capitals. And I want to thank all of you that listen on the audio side and watch this on YouTube. You are what makes this show successful. When you're done here, head on over to Locked On's 24-hour streaming channel on YouTube and the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.